You're going to hear this blamed on tourists, on edits, on the way phones try to fix light at night. You'll hear the word ghost. It isn't that. What happened in the Grand Galvez lobby during Lone Star Rally is worse because it can happen again, and it only needs one uniform, one phone number, and one habit people have at 3 in the morning. The hotel sits on the seawall like it knows how much weight it holds every November. Riders, patch crews, couples tracing the century of pictures on the mezzanine. The lobby is polished enough to mirror a row of handlebars if you angle your head just right. That's where 3 sets of riders, who didn't know each other, took their pictures. The midnight check-in photo to prove they made it, the look at this lobby photo because the desk lamp is cinematic, the headed to the Strand shot because why not? All 3 photos show the same bellman 5 or 6 feet behind them, slightly left, holding a motorcycle helmet at the same angle every time. Same old-style jacket with a crest the hotel retired years ago when they changed the branding. Same ungloved left hand with a crease in the palm like the glove is tucked, but never worn. Ask the front desk to match him to a shift, and you'll hit a wall of confusion. Nobody on duty recognizes the jacket cut or the crest, and the storage room where old uniforms go was inventoried in spring. Ask for the roster and you'll get the list. The name tags in the drawer are plastic, modern script. The crest in the photos is raised thread with a little crown that the hotel hasn't used since before the pandemic. The helmet is a modular street lid, mid-price, mirror visor, little DOT compliance label with a scuffed corner. No one in the 3 groups owned it. The first rider to notice anything was a woman from Conroe who travels with a backpack of bungees and a little towel she uses to wipe bug grit off her goggles. She noticed the helmet because of a smudge pattern on the visor that looked like a fingerprint wiped in a quick circle, left by someone who raised it with one thumb. The second rider noticed because the bellman's sleeve in his photo had a thread pulled at the cuff like it had snagged on a service cart corner. In the next photo, hours later, the same thread is out again. The third rider noticed because he was a machinist, and once you tell a machinist to look for repeating marks, he can't not see them. All 3 told security after the thing at 3:17 a.m. The thing at 3:17 a.m. was not a shadow on the wall or a power flicker. It was a helmet outside a door on the 6th floor that did not belong to the person in the room. The hallway carpet had a faint ring of salt around the helmet like it had been set down wet. The night auditor wrote it exactly that way in the shift log, salt ring. Housekeeping snapped a photo at 3:22, and in the morning they used a little bowl of warm water and a cloth to lift the ring because salt eats dyes. The guest opened their door to a hotel line call they swore they answered. "Bell service," a voice said. "You requested wake up. Do you have a bag to tag?" The desk never made that call. The call log on the hotel's Cisco console shows no outgoing to that room at 3:17. The guest's cell phone shows Grand Galvez because caller ID can be spoofed with any competent app and a number you know the guest will recognize. What do you need to set a helmet, someone else's helmet, outside a door at 3:17 a.m. in a high-end hotel without leaving a trail? You need route knowledge, timing, and habits. Habits like the way housekeeping props a service hall door for 4 minutes when they're switching carts. Like the way an elevator will sit open if you hold your elbow against the door sensor while you slide a cart off. Like the way guests believe the phone when it uses the hotel's name. You also need access. Not key cards you leave in a drawer. Access. The door logs on the 6th floor in that window show pings without swipes on 2 rooms and on the stairwell door with a timestamp 2 minutes before the helmet is photographed. Not unlocks, not entries, pings. An engineer in training will tell you those are the latch sensors cycling, like a quick press against the handle from the hall, the bolt flexing in and out under pressure. He'll tell you something like a bell cart can do it if you angle it just right. The jacket matters because uniforms are a pass. Old crest, old cut, gloves tucked like you're going somewhere. A uniform is a key that never deactivates, and the helmet matters because of where it's from. Riders posted the lobby photos to their group chats and to a rally thread that always lights up around midnight with who's where and what's open, and someone local said they recognized the visor scratch pattern. That seems absurd until you see the crash report photo from last year. A seawall night, a modular helmet with a mirror visor flipped open by the EMT, a diagonal brush mark across the top third like a low branch kissed it 100 rides ago. The DOT label corner is scuffed in the same small triangle. It isn't proof by itself, it's a pattern. The real proof is that the helmet, tagged after the crash when the rider's effects were cataloged, should have been in property storage until the city cleared it. The log shows it was signed out last week by someone using a contractor ID that doesn't match any vendor on record. The vendor name is a single letter and a surname that could be real or could be cut and pasted from the driver's side of a truck in the parking lot. Nobody at the desk wants to say it, so the night engineer says it in the service hallway where you can hear the freight elevator clack. If someone has the helmet from that wreck and a uniform close enough to pass, and the habit to call your phone from a number you trust, they don't need a name badge. They can test doors, read faces, feel a floor settle. They can wait for a rally night when the lobby is cover noise and the desk is triage, and nobody will ask a man in a jacket with a crest where he's going with a bell card at 3 in the morning. The visor reflection in the 3 photos tells its own story. Photographers do this with chrome and with windows. You look for what the shiny surface sees. In all 3 pictures, the visor shows the chandelier, a distinct triple tier with a missing prism on the west side, and the pattern of light on the floor. In none of the 3 do you see the riders taking the picture reflected back. It is possible to angle glass to dodge a reflection on purpose. It is also possible to hold an object at a rehearsed tilt where your face is never there. The jacket shows another tell. The crest sits higher than the pocket by a half-inch more than the current uniforms. That's a run of patches from years back when the seam was lower. You only notice if you've stood behind a desk long enough to set name tags straight for the camera. And someone noticed, because security pulled the lobby camera timeline for the minutes when those pictures were taken and found no bellman walking the frame, no jacket like that crossing the tile. They found guests, suitcases, a kid sitting down right in the middle of the floor and refusing to move, a couple arguing quietly by the plants, a man in a navy jacket that might be a uniform if you squinted. But when you zoomed in, the crest was a modern one, and the sleeve had no thread pulled. The cart they did see was a 2-shelf utility cart pushed out of the service hallway by the pressure hinge, rolling 2 or 3 feet before the hinge pulled the door closed again. It happens. It also makes a sound you don't forget once you've heard it. The rubber wheels squeal on polished floor, the clack of the door hinge catching, the little bounce as the cart stops against its own momentum. It's the sound that reminded a housekeeper of a story from years ago when a neighborhood power outage brought people into the lobby because the hotel still had lights. A man with a jacket from before the rebrand had helped with candles. He had been helpful enough that a manager told him his shift looked good in the log. They found out later he hadn't been on the schedule in months. He was between jobs, he said, but he still had the jacket and a set of muscle memories, and nobody questioned a man who knew where to find a box of matches in a drawer only staff use. The helmet outside the door at 3:17 wasn't random. The rider whose room it was had posted a picture earlier that night of his keys on the desk, a fob with a dealership tag and a key that would unlock his saddlebags. The picture was meant to show the lobby and that desk lamp. The lamp is the giveaway, the same lamp that appears in the visor reflection of the first lobby photo hours earlier. If you think like a thief, you don't need a room number, you need a habit. People who put their keys on the desk do it again. People who answer a phone that says the hotel's name will believe the voice that says, "Bag for the cart." People who ride to Galveston for the biggest rally in Texas do not expect the quiet crime of presence, a uniform that belongs enough, a cart that moves on a hinge, a phone that says what it needs to say. Riders are loud in the day and meticulous at night. They set things in patterns. The person who placed the helmet knew that, and used it as a leverage point. The helmet outside the door is a focus. You look down, you step out, you adjust your weight so the door stays open with your shoulder. The latch sensor pings. You bend to pick it up and your phone rings. Your other hand is on the door. That is all the time anyone would ever need. The reason this story lives in the lobby at all is because it didn't finish. The writer's dog barked. That's it. The simplest interruption saved the whole thing. The dog put its paw against the door like it owned the latch. The writer lifted the helmet and felt that wet grit around the cheek pad, that salt that leaves a crystalline edge when it dries. The phone said Grand Galvez, but the voice sounded like it was in a room by itself and you could hear a small fan. The writer said, "I didn't ask for a cart," and hung up. And the helmet made a small suck sound as he set it back down because the carpet was still damp. The door closed. The latch didn't ping again. By the time security got up there, the helmet was still outside, and the only camera that would have seen the person who placed it had a smear across it from a thumb someone ran over the lens during a linen change. You can write this off as a lobby legend until you go down the list of verifications. The shift log with salt ring, the housekeeping photo, the door pings without swipes, the vendor sign-out with the contractor ID that matches no one, the 3 lobby photos compiled by riders who did not know each other, all with the same bellman, same glove crease, same patch stitched too high, same visor reflection angle, the night camera that shows a cart roll 2 feet by itself because doors move like that when you hold them and let them go. You can try to find a ghost in it if that's the kind of story you prefer. You can call the helmet haunted because it makes a better thumbnail. But the reason this matters to people who work nights is that it doesn't require anything except patience and practice. It's a study in how a place teaches you its movements and then can't unteach them. So here is how the night engineer tells it to new staff after the rally, in the back hall in a voice that carries only to the door with the hinge click. If you see an old jacket with a raised crest, check the patch height. If you hear a cart squeal and you didn't push it, look at the latch. If a guest shows you a phone call from the hotel at 3 in the morning and your console says no call went out, pull the camera 2 minutes before and 2 minutes after, because people stage time. If anyone sets anything outside a guest door and it leaves a ring you can only make with seawater, call security and wait. The seawall has a way of marking people. It marks the crash victims and the sand in their cuffs. It marks the helmets that slide across its concrete and come away with a diagonal kiss. It marks a hotel in the way its staff learn to move faster when the wind shifts. The salt ring in the hallway dried to a faint outline you would miss if you didn't know it had been there. The towel picked most of it up, but there's always a trace if you kneel and look at the pile from one side. That is the angle the night auditor uses when he re-watches the video of the cart rolling out 2 feet and stopping. He says it's physics. It is. He also says you can hide in physics if you practice at the edges. The 3 riders meet each other the next afternoon because that's what rally people do when something doesn't sit right. They compare notes, they pull photos, they start circling details with a finger on a phone screen. They overlay the visor reflections to prove to themselves they're not chasing nothing. They walk down to the seawall and look at the tide line and say the obvious thing. If the helmet really is the one from last year, somebody who knows the back of this hotel signed it out just to see what they could make people do. They stand there long enough to watch the tourist parade go by, the parade of bikes and rental jeeps and kids with lemonade. Somewhere between the salt and the exhaust and the sun on chrome, the idea lands in a place that makes your skin feel too tight. Uniforms and logos and habits are little spells people use on each other, and sometimes the spell is just a door cracked an inch and a voice that says bell service. One more detail sits in the file because it fits the pattern of someone with time. A bell cart found parked dead center in the service hall facing the wrong way, as if someone practiced turns until the angle felt smooth. The wheels left a thin black crescent when the brake bit. The line is still there now if you know where to look, because no one scrubs those halls the way they scrub the lobby. The hotel will tell you they tightened procedures after that weekend. They did. Old uniforms were pulled out of storage and boxed. Contractor IDs were audited. A vendor list was posted where anyone could check it. The phones were flagged so that any call claiming to be the hotel to a room would ping the front desk screen, and more than one person learned the sound of a spoofed line. None of that changes the part that sits with people who work nights and people who sleep with their keys by the door. The helmet was a key that only needed you to look at it. If you want a rule to keep after you hear this, make it simple. Don't answer the door at 3 in the morning because a phone told you to. Don't let a uniform be a password. Don't pose in a mirror without checking what else the glass sees. The bellman with the helmet will be in those 3 photos as long as the threads of the internet hold. The crest sits too high, the cuff thread is out, the visor shows the chandelier and never the photographer. If you zoom far enough, you can see the tiny notch where a prism should be. That's how close the angle is rehearsed. That's what scares the people who know buildings. Somebody practiced this, and practice means intention, and intention at 3 in the morning isn't weather or luck. If you stayed at the Grand Galvez that weekend, you probably walked across a floor that still smelled faintly of salt. You probably watched a bell cart glide and thought nothing of it, because that's what carts do on polished tile. You probably put your keys on the desk and your phone on the charger and the helmet on the chair back because riders hang gear so it dries, and you slept hard because the Strand is loud and the wind at the seawall wrings you out like a towel. The story only touches you if you keep the habit of looking at the edges of frames and listening to the way doors catch. That is the part people carry out of the lobby and onto the bikes when the sun hits the chrome, and the whole island smells like morning. They carry a little suspicion with the sunscreen, and the water and the wallet. They look for the crest height. They check the caller ID and then check the console. They tell each other the line that closes this story because it says the only thing that matters, it's not a haunting, it's an angle. And angles repeat unless someone blocks them. If someone knocks at 3 in the morning and a uniform says the right word and there's something on the carpet that makes a ring, you don't open the door. You call the desk from the number on their website, you wedge the bolt with a shoe, and you wait for a name you can verify twice. If a cart rolls 2 feet by itself, you note which way it points. If a helmet shows up that isn't yours and it smells like the ocean, you set it down and you wake the floor with your voice. That is the shape of this story. Not a shadow, not a superstition, but a person dressed to pass, using a building like an instrument. The next time the rally fills the island, you will see a dozen bell carts and 100 jackets and 1,000 helmets. You only need to catch one detail, the patch too high, the call that didn't come from the desk, the salt, where the air conditioner never reaches, to keep the story from finishing. That's the part worth learning. That's the part that saves the night from someone who has learned the pattern and wants to see if you'll step into it. That's the thing that makes people call it scary even if they won't use that word. It isn't a ghost. It's a plan. And a plan can be broken.